Welcome to Wolverine Confidential Podcast, brought to you by Corewell Health. I'm Ryan Zook.
And I'm Aaron McMahon.
In-state rivalry week is here as number 25 Michigan travels to East Lansing to face the Spartans Saturday night under the lights. The Wolverines are a double-digit favorite as they aim for their fourth straight win in the series. We detail the upcoming matchup ahead on Wolverine Confidential. Aaron, happy Thursday to you. Just a couple days before Saturday's showdown, and I don't know about you, but like for the second straight year, it doesn't really feel like there's much juice, much anticipation heading into this matchup. I mean, at least from the Wolverines' perspective, like they certainly haven't provided any like bulletin board material. It doesn't seem like this week, and I mean, it's not like this game for Michigan. I guess they need a win to keep their season alive, but like I mean, it's not like 2021 where there was a top 10 matchup and like the whole state paying attention to this game, and it doesn't feel like.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think it takes both programs to kind of be in like a driver's seat position where there's something to play for. And look, I guess for Michigan State there is this rivalry game and the chance to get off the snide here. But you're right, like you got two programs heading in opposite directions right now, right? Michigan's 5-2. They're coming off an impressive win over Washington after the bounce back after the ugly loss to USC, and Michigan State drops four straight, all four of which were Big Ten games. So that's they're effectively out of Big Ten title contention. There's not a whole lot to play for at this time, maybe to get into a bowl, but Michigan State sliding and Michigan's on the way up. So yeah, and you're right. The lack of bulletin board material probably doesn't help the situation because there have been years, right, where we've gotten some enticing quotes from the Michigan side heading into this game, and hasn't been a whole lot of that this week. Probably by design, right? Jerome Morris probably told the players to shut up and not say anything that Michigan State could use as fuel. But I feel like we've said this now for the last couple of years, and then we get to Saturday and the game is played, and then something happens on the field, and it just starts the whole process all over again. So I don't know. Saturday will be interesting. It's 7:30 p.m. kickoff, another night game on NBC. But yeah, we're a couple days away now.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this year, even more so in years past, maybe because of all the previous altercations and the stuff after the whistles. It seems like Sharon Moore and the players and coaches have emphasized the respect for each other and the other team and all that stuff too. It's like, but once both teams are on the field and you get into the heat of the competition, like anything can happen. So like it'll be interesting to see, especially if it ends up being a blowout too. I mean, that seems to always maybe contribute to things too. And yeah, I think Michigan was a 13.5-point favorite yesterday. I don't know if that's changed, but yeah, I mean, I think odds makers are definitely expecting Michigan to take care of business. I mean, MSU's been reeling after a 3-0 start. I mean, they gave up 5 straight touchdown drives to begin the game against Indiana last week. I mean, their defense just has been gashed pretty much all year. But yeah, I mean, offensively, Aiden Childs is talented. I mean, Nick Marsh is probably one of the best receivers in the Big Ten at least. So like, I mean, it's if Michigan's defense can put together another performance like it did last week against Washington, I mean, this Michigan offense should be able to score some points.
Yeah, the Michigan State offensive struggles are a little perplexing because you said like Aiden Childs hasn't necessarily played poorly. If you look at the stat lines, he's played relatively well. I think he's got a 10 touchdown to 3 interception ratio. He's averaging something like 250 passing yards per game. And you mentioned Marsh. I mean, he's been very good. A 404 yards, 5 touchdowns, and they got another receiver who's performed as well. They just can't. I think it's a couple of things there. It's like the lack of the run game and the offensive line just hasn't held up, and that's really played had an effect on Michigan State and the other side too. Their defense has been really bad. I mean, they've gotten some track meets. Michigan State's been able to put points on the board in some of these games against Indiana, against UCLA. They just can't stop the opposing team, and that's been a major problem for them. So, Childs, the the task for him is to kind of keep him in check, kind of like last week against Washington and Demond Williams, who could move with his legs. Childs can do something similar. He is agile. He can get out and pick up yards on the ground if he needs to. I think his decision making has improved this year compared to last year. So he's another year older. He's a more mature quarterback. The task for Michigan, I think defensively, just to limit the big plays. If you can do that, at least Michigan State will probably score some points, but you've got to make them earn it. Because I don't see this Michigan State defense stopping much. Michigan can very much have a field day on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Childs too, it's got to be frustrating that like even if you go down and score, the other team's most likely going to answer too. So it's hard to establish the ground game when you're playing catch up seemingly in every game, at least in Big Ten play. But yeah, I think one takeaway for me from listening to players and coaches this week is Michigan's kind of identified defensively at least what other offenses are trying to do, and it's trying to get them to be aggressive and then hit them with some quick screen passes and quick game, and move the chains that way. And I think Trey Williams had a funny line. It's like and said like, yeah, I mean, other teams would be idiots not to do that against us based off the tape we put up against USC. And then against Washington, it seemed like they were much more cognizant of that and had a great game plan and executed. So it sounds like, I mean, Michigan State could potentially try to operate in similar fashion, and it sounds like Michigan is just better prepared for what offenses are trying to do to them.
Yeah, I mean it's basic like college football X's and O's, right? Like you find an area you can exploit and you take advantage, and clearly USC saw that a couple of weeks ago and clearly took advantage. Washington tried last week, some success, but not nearly as much. And look, give kudos to Wink Martindale and Michigan defense. They adjusted, they did what they needed to do to kind of limit that type of stuff. So I think they're in a better position to defend that those types of throws, those types of passes. This Saturday. Um, you know, I think it helped them, having the success they did last week against Washington, not only in limiting just the yardage, but the turnovers and the ability to kind of flip the field a little bit. I think that there's something to be said there for just being able to bounce back, and they did very well. So I think they're better positioned against Michigan State to defend that type of stuff. And that's not to say Michigan State's not going to still try it. They're still maybe not to say they're not going to have success with it, because they probably will. But if Michigan at least limit it, that's all you can do. And it goes back to my original point. Just make Michigan State earn it. And if they get on the board, they score points. They score points, but make them earn it. Make them move down the field, and more importantly, you got to be able to respond and match that type of thing. And I don't have any issues. I think Michigan will be able to do that on Saturday. I mean, if you look at Michigan State's defense, tied for 121st nationally in scoring defense. They're giving up almost 33 points per game. 88th in the country in total defense. You're allowing over 380 yards per game, 6.2 yards per play, which is near the bottom of the country. So they're giving up big plays. They're giving up yards. It's going to be, I think the onus is going to be on Michigan's offense to win this game on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, this secondary can definitely be exploited. 17th out of 18 teams in the Big Ten in pass defense, and you wonder if that maybe, and we still don't know if Justice Haynes is going to play on Saturday too. So potentially if he's out again, maybe this is another game where you kind of unleash Bryce Underwood and try and move the ball through the air. I mean, he was coming off arguably his best game of his college career against Washington. Only threw for 230 yards, but was efficient. Threw 2 touchdown passes, and it seems like now they have a clear top 2 receiver. Top 2 receivers in Donovan McCulley and Andrew Marsh. Andrew Marsh continues to impress the more experience he gets too. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the year if he's the number 1 target. I mean, he's been that reliable. I mean, the one-handed catch he had last week was pretty sensational, especially because he made it look so easy too. So yeah, he's continuing to get adjusted to the college game, and yeah, again, tight ends is Marlon Klein and Hogan Hansen going to be back, or is it going to be Zach Marshall and Deacon Tanielli again? Some question marks for Michigan, but I think no matter what, they're going to try and move the ball through the air and kind of take the top off this Michigan State defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Chip Lindsey, you can kind of run a carbon copy of the playbook last week against Washington, right? You get the tight ends involved, you can establish a ground game. You can hit your receivers on the outside. I think that theoretically should be enough to win this game. You pointed the Michigan State pass defense is not very good. They're giving up 8.2 yards allowed per attempt, which is near the bottom of the country. They only have 3 interceptions, so they haven't been able to force a ton of turnovers. So it's ripe there for the taking for Michigan to throw the football and have success doing it. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Donovan McCulley and Andrew Marsh have some big games. You mentioned Justice Haynes. I think at this point last week, I would have considered him doubtful going into the game just based on what we were hearing and the unknown with the injury and everything else. Jerome Moore did say earlier this week that the plan was for Justice Haynes to try and practice more this week. My understanding is he practiced maybe lightly late last week just to see how his body responded and whether he'd be able to suit up on Saturday, and they determined that wasn't going to be the case. But it wouldn't surprise me if he gives it a go on Saturday and tries to play. Again, I don't know what shape he's in. We haven't gotten the extent of the injury, but if it's ribs or abdomen or something to that effect, and whether it's bruised or whatever the case may be, that takes time to heal. And taking shots, running the football or blocking isn't ideal. So, it wouldn't surprise me if you see more carries again for Jordan Marshall on Saturday. And quite frankly, I think he deserves them. He had a really good game last week against Washington. He was able to move the chains and pick up first downs and run, for positive yards. I think he deserves more of an opportunity this week. So if Marshall plays, or excuse me, if Haynes plays, I don't know what type of shape he'll be in, and I don't know what his carry load is going to be. So I don't know. I think Michigan has enough weapons here to get it done. They should be able to move the ball without issue. The only concern is turnovers or Bryce Underwood maybe trying to force some things. We've seen that in the past. Him trying to force things, and it causes issues. But if they can play a clean game offensively, there shouldn't be much. They should be able to put up some points.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Marshall coming off a 25 carry, 133 rushing yard performance. I mean, that's a lot of carries in one game, and I mean, without much depth behind him too. I don't know if you want to run him into the ground again too, just based off what you have coming up. I mean, yeah, the weather's getting colder. Fall, you're going to be needing to rely on your run game a lot. So yeah, it'll be. I'm sure if you're Michigan, you would like to get Justice Haynes in there a little bit too, just to keep both guys fresh. But yeah, you don't want to risk injury too, because yeah, I mean, as we talked about before, that Ohio, if Michigan takes care of business, I mean, there's going to be a lot riding on that Ohio State game, and you want to be as healthy as possible for that matchup. But got to win all the games ahead of you first. Anything can happen in the Big Ten, as we've seen this year, and this is a rivalry game. I mean, it's said every year, but throw the records out the window. I mean, who knows what happened? I mean, Michigan's controlled it since 2021 when they lost that top 10 matchup. But even last year's game was close. I mean, 24-17 wasn't really a super clean performance from the Wolverines. So you never really know what you're going to get.
No, you don't. I mean, Michigan State tends to obviously get up for these games. This is their big game of the year, and well, it's maybe not Michigan's biggest game. It's their second biggest, and it's on the board every year, right? Like when Sharon Moore and the Michigan coaches and players talk about preseason goals and what they want to accomplish. It always starts with beating Michigan State, right? And then beating Ohio State, and then winning the Big Ten and playing for a national championship, or getting in the playoffs. So this is kind of step one of those goals, and they treat it seriously, right? Like they talked about it all year. The rivalry with Michigan State still means something. You can make a case. Maybe it's more ferocious and more emotional than even the Ohio State game, at least for the players. There's a lot of bad blood on both sides. It seems to come out every year. On the field. We hope we don't see something to that effect on Saturday, but either way, it's going to be a chippy game. There's no doubt about it. A lot of folks on both sides looking forward to it. For different reasons, right? Michigan, we talked about. Michigan needs to win to stay alive with all their goals and in the Big Ten title race and the playoff. Whereas Michigan State, a win would be huge for bragging rights and a chance to, quite frankly, turn around their season. The things aren't going so high right now. Jonathan Smith's feeling a lot of pressure there in East Lansing. I can't think of a better way to kind of undo some of that pressure than to pull off an upset victory Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to think that if Michigan State somehow pulls off the victory, I mean, that at least makes Jonathan Smith safe for the rest of the season. I mean, who knows in the off season, but yeah, for them to, or if they were able to pull off the upset, that's huge for the program. And I mean, yeah, they're trying to get to bowl eligibility. Tough road ahead to do that, and a win over Michigan would certainly help. But yeah, again, it's under the lights. It seems to maybe add a little bit, always add a little bit more fuel to the fire. It seems like. I mean, anything else this week that stood out to you, Aaron?
Yeah, not really. I was a little surprised at how subdued the players were about the rivalry. I figured we'd get something from someone, and we just didn't get it. In fact, Sharon Moore was very complimentary of the Spartans on Monday, and he was asked about the respect level for the programs and everything else, and he reiterated a couple of times that he has a lot of respect for Jonathan Smith, and even going back to his Oregon State days. So there wasn't a whole lot of trash talk really on both sides. Even if you go to East Lansing and read some of the quotes coming out of their press conference, not a ton. Michigan State players are obviously aware that what a win will do for them and their season. But we'll see what comes to game time, right? We always hear things. We always hear the quotes this week, and there's the last couple of years, especially there hasn't been much, and then it's almost like a totally different environment on Saturday once the game hits. So, Michigan clearly takes it seriously. If you walk into Schembeckler Hall these days, I mean, there's a sign there. It says no red or green past this door. Obviously, as representative for Ohio State and Michigan State. So there's clearly a motivation behind the scenes. We don't know what's being told or whatever the case may be, but this is always a big week for the state, the fan bases, and for me, it's always interesting because especially the Michigan side, there's so many guys that are on the roster that are just not from the state of Michigan. They're from out of the state, they're transfers, whatever the case may be. So there aren't those same ties that players that are from the state have, the ones that maybe grew up around this and are familiar with, the give and the take and the back and forth. So even then, Michigan seems to still play with an edge in this game. And quite frankly, you need to, right? Like there were so many years where Mark D'Antonio, I don't say surprised, but he dominated Michigan. He had a run there where Michigan it was very difficult for Michigan to win this game, and it's since flipped. But you never know when that could reflip again. I mean, you mentioned throwing the records out and everything else, point spreads and all that stuff, because I'm fully expecting Michigan State to come out on Saturday totally motivated.
It's interesting you mentioned that because we did speak with Michigan receivers coach Ron Bellamy on Wednesday, and he has more of a unique perspective than a lot of people. He obviously played at Michigan, was a receiver for the Wolverines from I think 1999 to 2002. He's from Louisiana, so he kind of, and his first game against MSU was when Nick Saban was there, and he recalled an instance where he remembered like a player spitting on someone else. It's like, oh wow, it's this type of rivalry. Like in Louisiana, there isn't any sort of in-state rivalry of that magnitude. And then he went on to be a head coach at West Bloomfield High School for I think 11 years. So he's been able to see this rivalry up close for a while before joining Michigan staff. And he even said like you can definitely tell just by being in the school which team has control of the rivalry based on what people are wearing in the schools too, and how recruits are thinking about both schools. And so yeah, right now Michigan has had a kind of a stranglehold on the series in recent years, but it just takes one game to kind of flip things and momentum for a whole year. So yeah, Michigan's going to want to hold on to that Paul Bunyan trophy. And yeah, I mean that even if both teams have multiple losses, it's still there is at least it seems like there's a little bit more added excitement for this type of game.
Yeah, it's bragging rights, right? Like how many how many people do you know, or the family is essentially split, right? You've got maybe a Michigan State grad and just a general fan of Michigan, or vice versa, right? You got Michigan grad and Michigan State grad in the same family. It's pretty commonplace. So you get the family internal bickering and everything else, but for some reason, when these two teams hit the field, it just turns nasty. I'd make the case, the players take this rivalry maybe more seriously than the fans do. And maybe it's flipped for the Michigan Ohio State rivalry, right? I think there's a healthy respect for the Michigan and Ohio State players, whereas the fans just hate each other. So it's interesting. it provides commentary and talk around the water cooler at work and school and everything else. Because you're right, it's effectively split evenly, in the state between the fans. So I don't know. It's always something that's made me scratch my head, just in terms of the the nastiness and the the candor that the fans deal with. But I don't know. I just hope that things don't get off the rails on Saturday. It almost seems like every year there's been something. Maybe can we finally have one year where things cool down a little bit? That would be ideal in my book.
For sure, for sure. All right, let's dive into predictions here. Yeah, obviously no Andrew on today's podcast, but he did send us his prediction. He has Michigan winning 27 to 17. What do you say, Aaron?
I'm close to that. I think they cover. I think Michigan covers a spread. I think it's. I just checked this morning. It's jumped up to 14.5, pretty much across the market. So, um, early betters and money are clearly on the Wolverines winning this handily. And I agree. I'm going to say Michigan 34, Michigan State 17. I do think.
Dude, are you kidding me?
I do think Michigan State will get on the board. I mean,
Uh,
I think they have enough firepower, and I think Ainge Childs is experienced enough and talented enough where he's going to make some plays, and I think they're going to be able to score. And look, this is in East Lansing, so Michigan State does benefit with the home environment. But I think Michigan's offense is the difference here, right? Like Michigan, we talked about earlier. Michigan State's defense is not very good. They give up plays. They've given up 13 or yeah, they've given up big plays, just 3 interceptions. I think the Michigan has the ability to move the football, and they should be able to rack up yards and rack up points here. So, and look, they're motivated. There's no doubt about it. We talked about them coming out, rebounding from the USC game. I think they realize the path ahead. They're winnable games here, and it starts here. And you don't want to lose your season. You don't want your you don't want your goals jeopardized with a loss to Michigan State as a 14.5 point favorite. So I think Michigan comes out quick. I think they win this game and 34-17.
Yeah, well, I have the same exact prediction. So, for similar reasons, yeah. I mean, it's a lot. Seems like a lot of points in a rivalry game, but I mean, Michigan State's defense has just been a disaster now all season. And I think Michigan's defense looks like they turned a corner a little bit last week, and I mean, yeah, we they didn't even play Rod Moore or Brandon Hillman too, so in the secondary. So if either of those two guys are able to come back, that should help the back end of that secondary too. I don't know if Mason Curtis and it will be interesting to see how much Jaden Magnum plays though too. I mean, he is provides a little bit of a unique one of the few players that have actually switched teams in the rivalry. Began his career at Michigan State. Actually graduated from Michigan State before transferring to Michigan and didn't play last year. But yeah, has had a role this season and probably will be looking forward to. We didn't get a chance to talk to him this week, but I'm sure he's itching to face his former team.
Yeah, there's some weird ties too, right? Like Caden Strayhorn, the freshman offensive lineman from Michigan. His dad's Jason Strayhorn, the Michigan State, star and former play-by-play or radio guy. Some weird ties here, but you know, it, we've talked about this in the past, and there's some stat out there. I don't know, I don't have it off the top of my head, but typically the winner of this game is the team that rushes for more yards, and I think that's set up perfectly for Michigan in this environment, right? Michigan's they have they have the effective ground game, whether Justice Haynes plays or not. Jordan Marshall showed that he can carry the load, and I think he can do that against a Michigan State rushing offense. They're only averaging like 120 yards on the ground, and that includes 20 to 30 yards to main childs per game. So they don't have much of a ground game. Michigan State. So Michigan should win the game on the ground here. That's an area where I think they can succeed, and that may very well be the difference maker. That's something we didn't really talk about a ton, but it's something that always differentiates these two. And again, it goes back to I think my original point. Michigan should be able to move the football, whether it's through the ground, through the air. I'm expecting them to put up some big yards Saturday night.
Yeah, what one more tie to the rivalry that's kind of noteworthy before we wrap up here is yeah, Blake Frazier, left tackle, new starting left tackle, will be making his first career start. I mean, he's a Michigan legacy. His dad, Steve Frazier, was on the 1997 national championship team, and yeah, even though he grew up in Texas, he grew up a Michigan fan following the rivalry, and yeah, this will be his first start. Played a lot after Evan Link went down with an injury last week. But yeah, I feel like it's a little bit different when you have a whole week to prepare for your first start too. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see how the offensive line kind of holds up now again. I think Blake Frazier was pretty good in his action when he replaced Link, but yeah, this is a little bit different, being the starter now and protecting Bryce Underwood's blind side.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like, on Saturday against Washington, he was just kinda it was more probably adrenaline and just the ability the opportunity to get in there and play and just kinda hold up, and I think he did hold up pretty well. Now he's gonna put together on a week-to-week basis, and that's gonna be the key, right? Like, you got a Michigan State team that's probably clearly looking at tape and ways to try and beat him. So it's gonna be interesting. Michigan's a little lighter on the offensive line now than they were a couple of weeks ago. You got a backup now. They're going to have to move Brady Norton outside in an emergency situation. You've got Lawrence Tatar as a backup guard. Nathan Philby's still waiting. Other than that, I mean, really, Michigan's really working with 8 offensive linemen. They probably trust in the game. So it's a far cry from that 10 that they were talking about in the preseason. But right now, yeah, it's gonna be Blake Frazier's position until Evan Lake comes back. It sounds like Michigan they're more optimistic about Evan Link's status than they were Saturday after the Washington win. There's a chance that Link does come back for the end of the year. They haven't put a timetable on it just yet, but it's been clear that it's not season ending, which is certainly good news for Link.
Yeah, that's great news. It did not look good on Saturday when he had to be carted off. So kind of yeah, a relief there for Michigan, and yeah, I mean, especially with the depth that's taken a hit this year, that's really good news. But we will be providing coverage throughout the rest of the week and lots on Saturday night into Sunday. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.